Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another session in our Corporate Communications Online event series. Welcome back to those of us who joined us last Thursday. My name's Chris Lukianenko. I'm the host and creator of the Intelligent Workplace podcast here at LiveTiles, and I'll be hosting the event today. Now, as you may know, we started this new weekly event series in response to the situation that we're all currently finding ourselves in. It's fair to say that the world's an extremely different place to what it was only a few weeks ago, maybe even only a few days ago. And as a result, the business world has changed dramatically. And as I said last week, these sessions are designed to appeal to corporate communicators. So anybody who's dealing with communications right now, whether that be internally or externally, the idea is that we're trying to help you solve some of the problems that you're currently facing. This is an interactive session again today. So if you want to ask a question during the session, feel free to do so. I'll monitor the questions in the questions box, and I'll ask them of our presenter on your behalf. Speaking of, we click over to the next slide, Simon. Joining me today.
Sorry, Chris, are you recording, mate? Just quickly.
Yes, we are recording. Yes, mate.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, thanks.
As you were. Joining me today in this session is Simon Tyrrell, a colleague of mine here at LiveTiles, who I believe is a bit of a renaissance man in our industry. He enjoys pushing the boundaries, trying new things, and embracing the new ideas of what is an ever-changing industry. As I said, his name's Simon Tyrrell, and he's the Chief Product Officer here at LiveTiles. And since inception, Simon has been one of the driving forces behind the LiveTiles product, and he's very passionate about driving innovation. He has the gift of still being able to see the bigger picture, especially in times like this when we're in such a crisis, while also being able to drill down into the real-world details in terms of how our products are used by the likes of all of you on this call here today. So welcome on, Simon Tyrrell.
Hello, Chris, and hello, everyone out there.
Your home office looks very nice and tidy today. Much more interesting in the background than mine is.
I did clean up a bit last night, to be honest, but yeah, it's interesting times.
Need to find some decorations for mine. I've got the picture of my family over my back shelf. That's the best I can do for decoration. So, all right, we might move on then and have a chat about the agenda now. So today, as we mentioned last week, this session is a follow-up to the previous session where we're going to demonstrate some of the pieces of tech that we spoke about in that last session. So what we'll be discussing today, remote employee communication. So Simon's going to give you his thoughts on the state of play with this and demonstrate our mobile communication solution that we spoke about last week, which is what we've been using ourselves here at LiveTiles as we work from home. So we'll talk about that in terms of communication, and then the mobile first approach to actually converting that into also to engagement with your staff. Next up, we'll move into the world of bots and share how we are seeing bots used in our customers right now to make access to information easy across different channels and reduce the load on things like call centers and help desks. And next, we'll take a look at extending Microsoft Teams with access to corporate information and tools via the PowerPanel with another demo from Simon. And then while we're on the topic of Teams, that is a hot topic right now, and we'll finish up by talking you through some of the approaches to rapidly planning and rolling out Teams so your users are not only up and running, but getting value out of that in no time at all. So as I said, once again, this is an interactive session. So ask the questions via the app as we go along, and there'll also be a bit of time for Q&A at the end. So let's get into it. I need a chime to tell you to turn the page, Simon. So imagine this is your team. They're awesome, they're so smart, they're so innovative, they collaborate well together, and you are building a winning culture with them. And then something like COVID-19 strikes, and you have to keep all of that going while your people are working from kitchens, bedrooms, lounge rooms, studies, and they've got distractions such as their partners might also be working from home. They might have kids, and there's lots of daytime television to watch. So it's really, really challenging. And look, we're seeing that here at LiveTiles, aren't we, Simon?
Yeah, we are, mate. It's I mean, we're in a lucky position in a way in that we're quite dispersed anyway, and our natural inclination has been work from anywhere as a company. But even then, I just came off a leadership call then, and there's still pockets and teams of people that perhaps that isn't the norm, and I think we have forgotten that a little bit at times, that it's not the norm. And then the social isolation piece, disruption to just standard work practices, processes. Yeah, we're definitely seeing that, and the good news for us and hopefully for all the organisations listening is that we're also seeing a lot of people stepping up and really taking charge of situations and actually seeing some benefits, to be honest. less time traveling to work. Seems to make more time available in the day. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting and challenging times, but we're adapting pretty well in LiveTiles at least.
Yeah. And for those that were here last week and saw the session, we were using our mobile communications app internally to help stay in contact with each other. You saw screenshots of people posting pictures of their work environments like this, sharing pictures of dogs and cats, and generally having a chat around that. So I thought it'd be great just to get Simon to maybe give you a bit of a live, there it is there on the screen there, that's the slide from last week. I thought it'd be great for Simon to maybe take you through this tool here and tell you a little bit more about it. So get that live demo fired up, mate.
Absolutely, mate. So let me just jump in. So the demos here will be really short and sharp, just to show some of the functionality and more importantly, why we think it's important in the current climate. So this is our employee communications application, and it's deliberately very simple. It is lightweight. You're up and running in minutes, and then there's some basic configuration you can do to structure it, which I'll quickly touch on. But what we've found in LiveTiles is just the fact that this is so focused on communications. It's not surrounded by noise of, say, collaboration tools, etc. It allows both top-down and bottom-up communications, and it's very, very easy to get in and publish good-looking content that can be very, very relevant, and then you've got the ability to target at different channels, etc. And also, we've found just the simplicity of the mobile experience, the ability for push notifications has been a godsend actually, and it's been amazing how much this has taken over from other forms of more traditional communications, if you will, within LiveTiles, just as a way for people to get messages out. So really quickly,
a little live example. Can you see this on the screen here on my screen? That's a view from one of the guys in New York today. So this is the mobile device that I've got working, which is what Simon's showing you on the screen on the web version.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is being used for all sorts of stuff, from updates around coronavirus responses by government, through alerting mechanisms, through to just, sharing pictures of home offices, sharing pictures of coffee machines, and now the latest is sharing pictures of flowers in gardens. So it's really both a way for people to stay in touch, but also a way to get important information out. And I'll just quickly touch on some of the key things about it. So basically, as I said, it's really focused on the news communication side. And it's really important that is simple to get that information published, that you don't have to battle with the tools, if you will. So it's got all the things you would expect in the editing experience, plus it's got things, there's an analytics engine behind the background, it's the ability to turn on or off comments. You can put basic polling into these articles. You can put on read acknowledgements into these articles as well. It's also got the ability to translate. So we have the ability to automatically translate between English and German for our colleagues in Switzerland, and you can add additional language capabilities to that as well. But if I just quickly jump into where we do that, so I can jump into the editing experience, and this is where anything above the line is stuff still being worked on, anything below the line is a published article. So to get an article out there, I simply come in here, and it's a very much a medium.com style. I can add a banner image very, very quickly. We've got some stock images. Why don't we go with a cat? That seems like a good idea. Okay, and we'll put a cat in. And then from there, it's very much what you'd expect. So I'm just going to type away here. Then once you're into the body, really quick, insert an image, insert a link to a video, external or internal, insert a document, or even insert a quote from somebody, which just styles it. We can select keywords and apply that. So we use that for things like this is relevant to a department, or this is relevant to a location, okay, or a topic. Do we want to ask readers to share a poll? So we can quickly put a poll in place here. Once again, it's not trying to be a full survey tool, but at least it's got the ability to say, did this make sense, etc., etc. And you can have multiple questions. You can also choose whether those questions are multiple choice or not. And as I said earlier, we can ask readers for confirmation of this article. So really simple to get those articles in, and then you can save as a draft, or you can publish, and bang, it gets pushed out to the app and notifies people on their mobile experience, as well as the usual email notifications. And just quickly touching on some of the other information possibilities in this, If you don't have a social tool such as a Yammer, etc., and you want to get just quick updates from workers around the world, there's a post function, which is very simply the ability to get bottom up and top down communications, more like your quick share of stuff. Might be very useful for those of you who have kiosk workers or workers in the field. I should point out, this app doesn't require any underpinning Office 365 or other licensing, so it's a very good solution for our customers, and we're getting a lot of interest in it for those workers who maybe have traditionally not been part of that enterprise licensing and systems. It's got the ability to have structured content as well, so pages. So think of that as just a really simple, fast wiki capability where you can start to drill down through, say, an employee handbook. We've had some customers who have very quickly digitized policies, protocols, procedures information through that feature. And finally, it's even got a really simple events capability. So if you want to promote, say, a digital yoga event, which we're seeing a lot of in our company, and you don't want to do it for email, because once again, you may have a user base that doesn't even have email accounts, then you can do that here and create an event. All of the features such as translation, etc., flow through, and then has the ability for you to use polling to say what location people are going to be in, and then they can register, and that information can be fed into another system if you want, or the user can actually add it to their calendar, personal calendar as well. So
Simon,
really
we're getting a few quick questions, mate, just while you're still on that one. I can't see who's, I think it might be Daniel Shipper might have asked this question. Does the product have SSO integration with Azure AD?
Yeah, absolutely does. And even better, Daniel, let me show you something which is incredibly powerful. That was a demo environment. I'm just going to switch to another subscription, which is actually our Swiss organization that we acquired last year, Cycle. So this environment here is live, so you can see alerting around update on coronavirus. Whole bunch of updates going on here from across the company. What's interesting about that technical level, this is actually 3 Azure AD SSO environments. So it does have the ability to integrate multiple Azure AD authentication flows, which is important if, for example, you might want to use this to communicate with suppliers, partners, etc., and don't have the luxury and time of setting up a different authentication mechanism. So absolutely it can do that, and it's just done in the admin center.
Keep those questions coming through, peeps, if you have any. And I've just noticed, Simon, that our friend Christian in, I think he might be in Switzerland, has just got a great delivery of some stay-at-home coffee, which I know interests you. So this is
Absolutely.
the kind of stuff that we're sharing around the globe to keep everybody entertained and engaged.
Yeah, and just quickly, guys, this is what actually started being used a lot, was these alerts. And just to explain what that is, it's a simple tick box in the editing experience. It just posts that at the top of the page, visually separates it from the rest of the news. You can expire that, so you can say this is only relevant for the next 3 days, which in the current climate is probably 24 hours. But really simple techniques, and then that obviously promotes it in the mobile app as well. So the message here is lightweight, you're up and running very, very quickly, but you have those rich editing experiences. You've got management along the lines of channels, for example, what you're seeing here. So the ability to segment it out. Users can choose to follow or subscribe to particular channels. You can also force certain channels must be followed. And then it's got some additional features that might be relevant to you, such as the events, the pages, and the posts. And of course, those can also be turned off if you don't need them.
Simon, you mentioned that you can be up and running quickly. How quickly? Are we talking minutes, hours?
Yeah, seconds. I created that demo one last night in 30 seconds, and I was up and running, able to go. So then if you needed to integrate with the Azure AD, that can be done with some IT help in 5 minutes, and you're up and running. Then it really becomes about, your efforts right now, to be honest, should not be on technology. Your efforts should be on how you're going to communicate, your cadence, your tone of voice, all the stuff that Paul spoke about last week. We believe that's where you should be focused, not juggling and struggling with the technology aspect, because that's not going to engage your employees best. It's how you use those tools, and this tool is definitely not a barrier to getting going.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. Now, look, while Simon gets his next demo sorted out, I'll just quickly touch on another thing that we're using here at LiveTiles to help with engagement, and it's something I'll be talking about on Thursday in our next one in these comms series events, and that's internal podcasting. As I said in the intro, I'm the host of our podcast here at LiveTiles, and we have both an internal and an external version. So on Thursday, I'll be taking you through how we got our podcast up and running inside a day for under $500. Some of the software and the bits of equipment that we use. It's really easy, really simple, and I'm happy to share all of that with you. We've even developed an internal tool that sort of gets our stuff out there to all of our employees via their podcast mobile apps. It's all up in the Azure cloud, and it's a really great solution that doesn't cost the earth. In fact, we made it internally in a very short period of time because we found that some of the tools out there were costing into the thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So if you're interested in starting that and talking to your employees more, join me on Thursday for another one of these sessions. So next up, we've got, if we flick over, we've got what bots can do for you now. So this is the AI overlords with chatbots. So Simon, chatbots have been around for a while, and we've had the platform making it easier to build, manage, and deploy them for quite a while now. What are you seeing with the current situation with our customers, how they've been able to take advantage of this technology? And the question I've got for you, are they actually useful?
Well, it's fascinating, this one, because yeah, we've been working with bots now for close to 4 years, I think, and we had definitely, prior to the current situation, seen the hype and hope around bots trail off a bit because they failed to live up to a lot of expectations, to be honest, around what they could do for particular use cases. It's been fascinating just the last week or so what we've seen customers start to do. So here is just a screenshot, and I'm happy to show it as well. This is Atlantic Health Systems in New Jersey in the US, who had just signed up as a customer of ours for bots prior to the recent events. And we're looking to do some stuff around just general HR bot use cases. And then not the weekend just gone, the weekend before, they reached out with a bit of an issue about how could they get more information out to the public. And in less than 3 hours, a bot was created, published onto their website, and you'll see it there. This is a screenshot of their website. You can go and check it out live. And the take a risk assessment takes you to a bot on our bots platform. As I say, this was devised, built, and published in less than 3 hours on a weekend, and just allowed them to offload a big load to their call center, which was, as you can imagine, overloaded with calls. And they've seen really, really significant uptake in terms of, and it's not going to take away all of those calls, but just allow them to offload some of it to the basic questions that can be asked, and based on responses, the type of information they can share in terms of simple things. Have you traveled to China in the last 14 days? Do you have signs of these symptoms? Have you been around someone who has these symptoms? And just guides the members of the public through a logical sequence of question and answers, and then directs them to the appropriate next step. And as I say, it's all about just reducing the load on the call center because it was being smashed. Interestingly enough, we're now seeing that within companies as well. So use cases that are all about, say, taking load off help desk, IT help desks, which all of a sudden they've got every employee in a company working from home, struggling with Wi-Fi, struggling with home setup, can't work out how to do something in an app, and they default to the usual of calling the help desk. At the same time, those help desk workers are working from home and struggling with their own situation. So anything you can do where you can very quickly get something stood up out to your employee base, that can of course be then exposed in Microsoft Teams. It can be exposed on your intranets, and if you want to, it can be exposed through mobile messaging apps as well. So just something to consider, and it's just quite funny to me that we've been working with this stuff for so long, and to be honest, we're getting a little bit, well, are bots really, do they have a future? And I think they're finding a role in just really simple, fast use cases that are all about offloading Q&A and information style access.
And that took only 3 hours to get up and running.
Yes, and that's a public bot too.
So just a very quick example of the process of what they have to go through to get this up and running.
So this one was built in our bot design, our bots platform, which we have, and yeah, it was just it was done by a LiveTiles staff member on a weekend who they reached out to and built it out and got it all done for them. And they've also got some analytics tracking it as well. So, and that's the point. The platform we built was its intention.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's just been something to think about for an organisation who's maybe seeing call loads just go through the roof and struggling to keep up, how can you maybe redirect a percentage of that traffic away? And particularly if you think about putting that bot into Teams, if you're rolling that out, which I'll talk to shortly as well.
What a great segue, mate. Speaking of Teams, as I said in the opener, Microsoft Teams is a really hot topic right now. I'm tipping that for you, people here on the call, you're all dealing with Teams right now. In fact, someone asked a question before that why aren't we using Microsoft Teams to facilitate the webinar? I don't think there's quite the functionality there to do that, but I can guarantee you that we're using Teams for just about absolutely everything internally right now. Microsoft are giving it away for free, as you may have heard, and people are really jumping onto it. But even before this all happened, we at LiveTiles could see that with the growing number of users was so rapid, it was going to be the next big thing. So we started on working on a way to augment Teams and use some of our own tech to put on the top of it and give you everything you need at your fingertips within Teams. And we call it the PowerPanel. And we're pretty proud of this one. So I might just hand it over to Simon for another demo on this.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in here and really quickly, I guess what this is about is, and obviously Teams is just, its growth has been prior to coronavirus and since, it's just been phenomenal. I mean, I saw some numbers the other day from within Microsoft that the growth is approaching 50 million daily active users right now. So there's a few things about this. It gives you that ability to go and collaborate, video meetings, etc., all the stuff people are using it for. But one of the things we're seeing is that those eyeballs are being lost to the corporate world. And by that, I mean what you might have traditionally seen as your role of your intranet. What is its place now? Does it have a place? And so what the PowerPanel is all about is how do you start to bring in access to corporate information systems, data, without taking people away from Teams? Because what we think users are wanting, and what we definitely see with our own user base and customers we're already talking to about this stuff, is that if they're in Teams, they just want to be there. It's where their meetings are, it's likely where documents are starting to be shared, and it's where they're sharing GIFs, right? And having a bit of a social connection. So, so how do you bring that in? And PowerPanel is something, I'll just quickly show you the concept here. It's something we've had for our SharePoint world, which is this sidebar over the side, but it is also possible, and it has been possible for quite a while, to actually bring it into Teams. So here I am in Teams. I'm just in the web app here for ease of demonstration. But basically, here's Teams, standard Teams, and we've got the PowerPanel app here pinned to the side. This could, of course, be a tab app, if you know what those are in Teams, where it's actually just embedded within the functionality of a specific team. But in this case, we've got it as a pinned app down the side, which means no matter where I go in Teams, I can come back to PowerPanel. And the types of things that can then be added are just about anything you can imagine you would put on your intranet. So we have the ability, for example, people search, people directory, which is leveraging our intelligent profile agent, which goes and makes sure all of our user profiles are kept up to date, which we're also getting a lot of customers talking to us about now, about trying to fill the gaps in profiles and also keep it up to date if people are moving work locations, etc. You can have corporate news coming down from your corporate intranet. That could be our platform, which I demoed earlier. It could just be standard SharePoint news. It could be a combination of those things. So that ability to make sure that that corporate information is delivered to me as a user, access to different services I might want, such as, for example, trading services, might be access to simple forms to go and get stuff done, such as maybe request an expense for a new webcam for my home office, that type of thing, where you can embed search capabilities in, alerts from your intranet, such as what's happening in different sites or different information across the environment can come here. So you see here, we've got quite a few alerts coming through. You can embed your enterprise social network feeds, such as Yammer. You can even embed your external social feeds if that's a way you feel you can keep your employees connected. And of course, you could even embed a bot into this as well. So that ability to get a bot within this environment, it could be multiple bots if you wanted it to, just to support your users. And once again, I can then go out of that and I'm back into standard Teams. And if I want to come back, I can come back into PowerPanel. So implement this, work out the types of things you'd like to have access to, that and it could be corporate data, could be dashboards, that type of stuff. It could be simple links to corporate and enterprise systems, or it could be a combination of all of that along with content. And just to give you an example of how we use it, I'm just going to jump into my live teams, and you see we've got PowerPanel across here, slightly different configuration. But one of the things we put together was just an official, a combination of official sources of COVID-19 updates. So we've got CDC information coming through, the World Health Organization's FAQ, right? And just the Microsoft COVID-19 tracker that they've done on Bing, which is pretty impressive. And just that ability to combine it all into one panel. And as you can see here, I can jump out of that, go into some personal links to systems, which I can also add my own if I don't want to think about getting back to, say, a browser-based business application. And I can just jump back into that. I can give it a quick read and then jump back into the standard use of Teams. So yeah, we think this is very powerful. Yes, mate.
Daniel just had another question here. He says, does that profile update app get the data back into AD?
Absolutely, Daniel. So the intelligent profile platform we got, which was used to be known as Hyperfish, that's what it's about. So you configure it centrally, and you just set a bunch of rules around what profile fields you want to get updated. Are they mandatory? Are they read-only? How often do you want to do it? And it reaches out to your users on whatever basis you set it. So not only to get information that might be empty, but also to go back and confirm, is this still correct? So clearly in the current environment, things like addresses, home addresses, phone numbers, those types of things which are often not up to date in Active Directory. And it supports both on-premise Active Directory updates as well as Azure AD updates.
And Daniel, I'll answer this question for you. Yes, it does do photos. So there's some smarts behind it to make sure you're not putting up a photo of your dog or your cat or a cartoon image, that you've got a real photo with a real person's face. So
absolutely, there's a whole bunch of analytics on the admin side too, so you can see how your profiles are tracking. Where do you have gaps, etc. And yeah, we've got a lot of customers right now reaching out where they've realised that their Active Directory user profile information isn't quite up to scratch.
Absolutely. And he's very happy with that. He's telling me that's nice. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
While Simon gets the Prezzo back up and running, we'll keep the Teams theme rolling here, and let's talk about implementing it. If you haven't already implemented it, it's actually a bit of work, and there are some really key decisions you need to make on access and channels and privacy and the like that can make it the difference between being a real game changer within your company or creating something that's a bit more of a hindrance that people aren't really going to use. So recently, just before all this outbreak, Simon created a fantastic card game to assist with this, and we launched it about 3 weeks ago. And now we can't play it because of social isolation rules, because you have to actually be in the room together. There it is. He's holding it up on his camera. We got it all printed. It was fantastic. It was ready to go, and then all of a sudden this happened. But what we have been able to do is take those insights that we sort of worked on in developing that game, and we're using that in a bit of a different way. So I'll let Simon explain what we're up to now.
Yeah, so this is quite ironic that we created this game, and it was all about trying to simplify the method of understanding how you might roll teams out and doing it in a really fun, engaging, but fast way. And we were having great success with it. But of course, a card game that's meant to be played in person isn't quite as effective in the current environment. So let's talk about why we did it first. So Teams technically to roll out is relatively straightforward. However, it has a huge amount of functionality, and how you structure it really does go to how much value your users get out of it. So as Chris alluded to, it's things like the team structure, how many teams you should have. Do you just allow free for all and anyone can create teams? Bearing in mind, a team is basically a silo of information and collaboration. How channels, so channels are just subgroups within a team structure. How do you best use those? Security settings, governance settings, all these things that you would traditionally have a lot of time to think about and plan around. Right now, you don't. So how do you rapidly approach that? So what we're doing right now for customers is two things. We're actually running the game as a remote session. So we're still using the physical game, but we've got a setup now where we can run it, and we're happy to also guide customers through how you can do it within your own organization. And the concept here is to run a quick 30, 60-minute session using the cards with teams to say, hey, what could we do here? How should we structure it? It also works really well to review how a team, so say a marketing team may have set some stuff up and it's just not working for them. So the ability to map that out and reverse engineer it into something that works. And it's a very, very powerful, but also fun, engaging way, which is obviously also important at the moment. The other thing we've done, and there's just a screenshot there, we've actually digitized it. And we've just used one of our own tools, our LiveTiles cloud platform, and we've just created really simple components that you drag and drop and allow us to do it in a virtual space. Once again, doing it live with customers, users on how they think it should work, capturing all of that, and then being able to share that post-event so you can see visually. And that's the key thing, the visual structure it makes it a lot easier to understand. We've then got another tool called the Teams Planning Workbook that allows us to take the agreed outcomes of the game and put it into more of a structured definition, which also then gives you some reporting around things like what percentage of public versus private, do you have external access requirements, etc. So those, and we can provide that to you as a report as well. So really simple things that should mean you can start to think about planning out teams in hours, not weeks. And then obviously go away and implement that. We've got some other tools post that if you want to talk about mass scale management, governance controls, but it starts with that rapid planning capability. So you can really think about how do we best structure teams so it is actually a useful tool and doesn't just become another platform of lots of silos, confusion, users being overwhelmed with where they're meant to go, etc. And also allow you to take advantage of some of its functionalities, such as app integration, so you can start to bring line of business systems into the experience as opposed to users having to jump out of it to go and get their other work done. So yeah, it's if you're interested in that, there's two things worth bringing your attention to. So just yesterday, we launched a support program for customers called Teams Accelerator. The link's just there on the screen. Encourage you to go and have a look and reach out to us. So this is both running the game for you, doing that planning tool and helping you with that and providing that to you as well, but also providing you with ongoing support, whether that be helping you review the use of Teams. Maybe it's, hey, we've got a hotspot over here where people are complaining that they need to do something differently. Once again, you can scale out to us, and we can help make that a better situation for those users using some of these things I've just mentioned. So please check that out. And if you're interested in the Teams game itself, so I'll put the URL there. Once again, we were sending out physical kits to customers. We will continue to do that into the future. But if you think running a different style of event, even if it's just to engage your users with something different and a bit of fun while talking about work stuff, please reach out to us and we'll get something set up for you.
Thanks for that, mate. We'll go into a bit of a quick recap here, and while I'm talking you through this, maybe have a bit of a think if you've got any questions for Simon. So first up, we showed you our mobile communications platform, which we've been using internally to not only engage with each other, but sort of send out important messages, whether that be via the website or on the mobile phones. So we've had some great success with that. We quickly touched on the power of podcasts, which we'll talk about on Thursday in a follow-up session. Simon then showed you how we're using the PowerPanel within Teams to bring everything into one location to make life a little bit easier. And then, of course, he just touched on how we're working on accelerating Teams implementations and adoption by way of the Teams game, and us helping you along with that. So if you are interested in any of those things at all, feel free to reach out. There are our email addresses there on the screen there. We're only too happy to help you out. So we've covered a fair bit in this quick 30-minute session here today. So thanks, Simon, for taking us through all of that. I'm sure there must be a few questions out there, although we have had a few people drop off. If you do have a question, like Greg Edmonds has just put here, he says, beg my pardon, when you say rapid deployment, how long do you see this on average? Obviously, this changes based on the customer's requirements.
In terms of Teams, I think, Greg, are you referring to that? I'll assume, and that's the case unless you... Yeah, look, the deployment itself's not necessarily the issue. So it depends on if you want a governed environment. So as I mentioned before, we've got some customers who are providing self-provisioning of teams, but doing it in a more governed way. So that's a number of days to implement that side of things. In terms of if you've got a particular group, might be a leadership team, it might be a marketing team, a HR team, who are just struggling to understand what the role of teams is. And what we've found is, and I encourage you to do it in your own organizations, ask people what they think teams is for. 99.9% of the conversations we've had, people are associating it with video meetings. And so right now, they're not even thinking about the broader set of capabilities it provides around collaboration, teamwork, integration of data sources, etc. And yet there might be some really powerful use cases for particular teams in your organization that can really help them get work done better in this pretty unique world we're operating in now. So it all really does come down to how quickly you can get that definition, rather than just free for all, which may work, it may not, but also not going into traditional projects style workshop and documentation requirements, which are going to be very hard to do in the current climate and are just going to take too long. So things like the teams game, the rapid planning, gives you that clarity on here's what we're going to do, which means you can then go and build it manually still. We could help you build it under our Teams Accelerate program, or we could work with you to implement that governance provisioning platform, which I say is a matter of days. And that allows you to set up templates, allows you to capture metadata, and allows you to track usage. Okay, so really simple things, but just enables you to have that centralized platform. To your users, you can still give them self-provisioning, that ability to create their own teams, but you put a little bit more structure around it. So the answer to the question is, we're talking hours of effort for teams to start getting an understanding of what they should be doing and how they should be doing it and why, and most importantly, trying to reach consensus on that. And then you're talking, go and build it either manually, internally, get some help, or we can look at setting you up for our ongoing provisioning and management, which is into the days. But we are not talking weeks of effort to get this going. And then the other important thing we'll note as this situation drags on, and the biggest unknown is we just don't know, making sure that you evolve, that teams can change with potentially different ways of working. As people get more mature with its use, their expectations might go higher. So having this ability to have this ongoing touch point and review of what's going on, how it's working, what's not working, and being able to change it, we think it's going to be absolutely critical.
We've got a couple of questions.
Great question.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions here from Hayden. Hayden, mate, we might just take that offline with you in terms of wants to get a bit of a view of the digitized teams going, because we are already 10 minutes over time. So I'll make a note to follow up with you, Hayden, post this event, and we can take you through that. Marie's got a quick question here, which is, what is the case for keeping an old style intranet if you shift to a dynamic PowerPanel? There you go.
Very, very good point, Marie. Thank you for asking that. And I was wondering if I'd get through the presentation without mentioning the word intranet. So it's a really good point. So we're seeing, and I'll give you just what we're seeing in customers right now. So obviously, our core platform traditionally has been really built around intranets, enterprise intranets and intelligent intranets. And we sort of assumed that might flatten off very, very quickly, and actually hasn't. So we're seeing a few things. We're still seeing organizations who are looking to either stand up a new intranet because maybe that was something they wanted to do, or improve their existing intranet, but they're wanting to, the timeframes of that are being brought into days and weeks, not weeks and months. So we think the role here is there's still a central place of access to stuff, and you are still going to have users in your organization who go to the intranet and rely on the intranet. But where we think you can really benefit from that with things like Teams being rolled out is things like the PowerPanel allow you to bring that set of information, whether it's corporate news, whether it's access to policies and procedures, which still need to be managed, right? We can't take all of our policies, procedures, documents and just dump them into Teams and go for it, because that's a risk to your organization. So you've got all of those structured, governed pieces of information. You'll still have the need to be able to jump off and access sites that exist for, say, teams that were already running. You want to be able to have a central point of access to simple things like quick links, enterprise search. So what we don't see the PowerPanel as replacing the intranet. It's just a different access point that puts it in the place where your users' eyeballs are. And We think that's going to be really important. We've thought this for a while, regardless of the current situation, simply because it means you're not asking your users to have to remember where to go or jump through hoops to get there. You can just put the important stuff front and center. And once again, with the PowerPanel, it's not a do once and forget. It can evolve with your organization. So it is configured centrally and then deployed out everywhere. You can do smart things like targeting. So for example, the HR team might have a panel or a component within one of those panels that nobody else sees. So all of those standard enterprise intranet capabilities are supported by PowerPanel, and we definitely don't think it's a replacement for the intranet. It just augments it with a different access point and maybe combines it with some other stuff specific to, say, meetings. We think that there's a role for PowerPanel in helping you get ready for your upcoming meetings and bring it all together, and that's something we're working on right now. So yeah, definitely the intranet has an important role to play, but I think the reality is a lot of your users, if you're rolling out Teams, are going to gravitate towards it because, as I said before, it's where the meetings are happening. It's where they're doing video calls to stay in touch. So if we can bring the stuff to them, and someone internally actually made a really good comment the other day, it's about the intranet adopting your users, not your users adopting the intranet. And that's sort of a bit of a mantra we've got going on at the moment.
Absolutely. I don't think there are any more questions, and I can tell you what, I'm really hanging for my next cup of coffee this morning, so we might wrap this one up a bit. Yeah, everybody who's still here, as you know, this is a new weekly series that we start here at LiveTiles, and today's session is actually a bonus one for all of you who have attended. And from here on, we'll be settling into a weekly Thursday time slot at 8:30 a.m. Australian time. You can jump onto our event page at livetiles.nyc at any time to see the upcoming events, because these will be rolling out, as I say, every Thursday. And so speaking of Thursday, this week I'll be back again at this time, and I'll be talking more about the power of the podcast and how we've been able to develop one internally that's been really efficient, effective, and a really secure way to share information with remote workers. Plus, it's a really great way to stay human in these disruptive times. So join me on Thursday, and that again is another interactive session. So bring your questions along. I'm happy to answer them, and I can take you through how we got that up and running pretty quickly. So thanks everybody for joining us here today. It's been really great having you here and having these conversations. That was a really great session where, you know, lots of Q&A, which is exactly how we want to run these things. We want to make sure that it's an open conversation, because that's key at this current time. So as I said, if you need any follow-up on anything here, feel free to contact Simon or myself or your local LiveTiles representative, and hopefully we'll see you here on Thursday for our next session. So thank you, Simon, for your time this morning.
Thank you, everyone, for taking time. Thanks, Chris, and yeah, stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, guys.